Hello, sweet parents. Welcome to the When Our Adult Children Walk Away podcast. My name is Dr. Janet Steinkamp, and during each episode of When Our Adult Children Walk Away, I will provide my professional and personal insights, information and opportunities for your self-reflection and growth, tips and tricks to make every day count, and encouragement to keep moving forward. I'm here to help you dig deep and get down to the root causes so that you can find your way out of the darkness to a positive and lasting relationship. Grab your notebook and a pen, settle into your favorite chair, and let's get to it. Today's episode is titled, Wait, what? You're leaving? Does that mean we're estranged? In this episode of When Our Adult Children Walk Away, we're going to dig into the answers to those questions. We're going to first define estrangement. We're going to briefly walk through a continuum of estrangement. We'll take a peek at what our adult children are hearing from their friends and many therapists who are advising them on when, why, and how to estrange themselves from us. And we'll begin to consider the ways we can maximize our time during those times when it's quiet and we're out of contact with our adult child. So let's start with defining estrangement. The commonly accepted definition is the cutting off contact between two or more family members and the state of diminished communication or no contact between two family members. This is important because, by that definition, there are about 67 million people in the United States who are currently estranged from one or more family member. This is a lot of people, so we are not alone, nor are our children. 10% of the 67 million reported estrangement between a parent and adult child. 8% reported being estranged from a sibling. Of the 67 million, there are also an estimated 16 million estranged due to elements of abuse or addiction. We recognize that in those situations, it's really important to seek out professional and licensed mental health support. Just consultancy does not provide therapeutic support, but we do have resources on our website at When Our Adult Children Walk Away. So moving on, I think we can agree that all relationships hit low points at times. For some people, perhaps in particular our adult children and their generation, the distance is their default means of coping. It's their primary go-to coping mechanism. And we know that by the language, right? We hear ghosting, cancel culture. They're such common terms, and they've become very common practice for people struggling in relationships. The continuum that we're going to look at today, or that I'm referencing, came off of the togetherestranged.org website. That's togetherestranged, no spaces.org. This particular continuum has 4 levels of estrangement. The first is called cordial contact, and that simply means that you're on good terms. You see people at family events, you chat, you might laugh together, but something just isn't feeling quite right. So maybe at that family gathering, they would typically sit right next to you, and they don't anymore. Maybe you don't get as much eye contact, or the laughter feels forced. This is something to pay attention to. These are changes that indicate your adult child is pulling away. The second level is called low contact. So you have a greater awareness of unhappiness in your relationship. It's clear to you that they're not feeling good about it. You ask and maybe they refuse to answer, and it just pushes them away further. So in the low contact area, maybe they're not coming to family dinners anymore or responding to texts or emails. Then moving into no contact, that's the third level, no contact. This is when a parent often receives notification that they want no contact. It's an email, a phone call, a statement on the way out the door. Or it could be that everything simply goes quiet. Suddenly, your adult child isn't answering the phone, isn't returning texts, and goes very silent. The fourth level is complete estrangement. This is when there's a total loss of the relationship, no communication at all. You might hear rumors about them moving, but not know where they're moving to. Sometimes people get married, have children, and they don't include their parents. That level of estrangement is called complete estrangement on this continuum. Now, this continuum is really important for us as parents because it helps us establish first where our own struggling relationship falls on the continuum. And so the second is that it helps us gauge whether our adult child is becoming progressively more disconnected. That's very important because whatever your level of estrangement, we do not want it to advance. I remember talking to a friend of mine when I first realized that my daughter had cut off communication with us. And my friend's advice was, whatever you do, don't completely shut the door. And I'll tell you, that was probably one of the best pieces of advice I received during our entire estrangement. Now, when we think about this continuum, we're talking about one side of the estranged relationship. We're really focusing on the parent. However, this continuum also applies to the adult child. In their case, they use this continuum for decision making. How far do they need to step away from their parents to do the work that they want to do, or to change what they want to change in their lifestyle? Again, if you look at that continuum, that's really important information for us to have. In today's somewhat chaotic culture, when our adult children begin to consider or seek advice on their relationship with us, cutting ties at one level or another is frequently posed as a valid and helpful option. Here's a quote from the website where you can find the image of the continuum that we're talking about today. Here's the quote. In any event, whether or not a person chooses to reconcile is really up to the individual and others involved. In all reconciliation cases, there needs to be a common ground from which to mend the broken relationship. That statement about common ground is really important. What they're saying here is that reconciliation cases are successful or come back together because both parties have found common ground. That means we need to do our work, people. We need to do our work during the silence. They go on to say, for some in this situation, reconciliation may not feel plausible, and this is a sign that more time, healing, and processing needs to take place. Again, your adult child is going to look to see if they can trust that you've made the changes that they've asked or that they need you to make. Only then will they agree to consider a reconciliation. While our children are doing their work, we need to do ours. In my experience, it was not until I really looked at my history and communication with my daughter. I had to boldly, humbly understand our situation and own what I contributed. Then I was able to start working on making some changes and really becoming the mom my daughter needed me to be. So when you look at the continuum, where do you think the level of estrangement sits in your relationship? Did you hear your adult child say things like, I need space to reflect. I want to explore my feelings. I need to resolve some issues. I want space to do my work. Those are indicators that they need space, and your best response is to give them that space. I really recommend that you set a goal to stop any increased or more extreme distancing. Instead of trying to increase or entice more contact, change directions, refocus to decreasing the risk of moving to the next level of estrangement. So here's my prepare to repair tip for this episode. Trying harder is very unlikely going to help re-establish communication, and simply trying harder does not provide the foundation we talked about earlier. It is not going to lead you to a mutually respectful reconnection. Instead, refocus your energy and time to take care of your own unhealthy contributions to the estrangement. You might consider expanding your understanding of your communication style, learning more about your child's communication style. You can expand your communication toolkit, learn to navigate conflict positively. Conflict is a part of every relationship, and when it is used to learn and managed, conflict can actually be very productive. Lastly, I would recommend that you work to modify your expectations of the relationship and of your adult child, so you are aligned with your adult child's expectations. The good news here is that when your child is most distant from you, you have a unique opportunity to do your work, to learn, to practice, to grow, and then when there is an opportunity to reconnect, you will be ready. Now, in our upcoming episodes, we'll focus on doing exactly that. We're going to focus on the easiest part to understand, and that's ourselves. We're going to explore topics such as the events and history that led to your particular estrangement. We'll look at the 5 emotional and psychological stages we experience as parents when we are estranged. We're going to look at 3 common myths of estrangement for parents and 5 benefits for parents when our children are gone. We're also going to talk about the risk of self-deceit and the need for mindful self-compassion. We have so much to talk about and so much work to do, and I'm grateful that you've chosen to spend your time with us. Today we walked through the continuum of estrangement. We took a peek into what our adult children are hearing from their friends and many therapists, the kind of advice they give each other about stepping away from us, when, why, and how, and we began to consider ways that we can spend our time during the silence. This is a great way to begin preparing to repair. People, I want to hear your story. I want to listen and understand your pain to help you walk out of the darkness. And I want to learn about the good parts, the happy times. They may not feel real right now, but they do matter, and it's important that we honor the good times. You may feel like you've been given more pain than your heart can take, that everything you thought you knew about you, your family, your child has shattered. Don't believe it. You can do this. You can put the pieces back together in a way that's more true, more real, and more solid. I'm so happy you made it to the end of this episode today. If you're feeling a bit more hopeful and like what you've heard here, please share this podcast with someone who you know is also struggling as a parent in their relationship with their adult child or other family member, and who could use some hope, help, and healing. If you have a second, I'd love it if you'd leave me a thumbs up, click on the word follow, and head on over to the When Our Adult Children Walk Away website. So until next time, my friends, be brave, be kind to yourselves, and stay hopeful.